UFC Fight Night Vegas 50 Santos versus Ankalaev just took place, and it might have been one of the best fight night cards of the year. Although it was spoiled by a bad main event, the rest of the card was amazing, so I'm going to go through the entire card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event, giving my reaction and breakdown to every single fight on the card, and my overall event recap as well, starting with the early prelim opener of Azamat Murzakhanov versus Tafon and Nchukwi. I picked Azamat Murzakhanov to win this one by first round KO. I didn't get to watch it live, so I've just been going back and watching those fights. Tafon and Nchukwi was winning that fight across the board, stuffing all of the takedowns, beating him up with knees in the clinch as well, making him pay for failing the takedowns, beating him up with kicks to the body, shots to the body in general, good shots upstairs, a couple of good leg kicks. He was cruising his way to a victory as Azamat Murzakhanov tried over and over again to get him to the ground, but couldn't really do so, and eventually Azamat throws a flying knee out of nowhere in round 3, KOs him really badly. A great comeback win from Azamat Murzakhanov. But I'll tell you this, man, he did, for a guy who's like expected to run through the whole division as he was coming into this matchup, he was really getting whooped quite badly, and he honestly looked like he was gassing out at some point in that fight, but he found it within himself. That strength and that heart and that determination to pull it out when he needed it and land that flying knee in the 3rd round. It was a great win. He got a performance bonus for it as well. But I do want to say, well done, Tafon and Nchukwi. He was doing really good, kept great takedown defense. I mean, the guy is a physical freak for that division, so obviously he's going to have the strength to somewhat keep up with Azamat Murzakhanov. But either way, he looked amazing, landing great headshots as well, and just doing really good until getting caught with a flying knee in the 3rd round. Azamat Murzakhanov takes one more gizmo out of his bag of tricks to get the job done, and now he can sort of get a bit more of a better matchup for himself moving up the division, because Tafon was a tough matchup and it was proven in that performance. Moving on up the card to another fight on the early prelims, Kris Moutinho versus Guido Cannetti. I picked Murzakhanov to win. I picked Guido Cannetti to win against Kris Moutinho because I thought that people were giving Moutinho a lot of credit and respect just for getting punched in the face for 3 rounds against Sean O'Malley. I mean, what were people really thinking here with a Kris Moutinho pick? Guido Cannetti has proven to be good. He was beating Marlon Vera in the 1st round quite unanimously. He had a great performance against Manny Martinez. Moutinho has done nothing in his career, and he has no idea how to fight people. He had a couple of decent moments early on where he actually showed that he was trying to win, which is mainly the reason why I believe he got KO'd in that 1st round anyway, because he was actually going out there, swinging shots, trying to win and trying to land good shots on Guido Cannetti, whereas against Sean O'Malley, he even said leading into the fight, his main aim was to not get KO'd and to survive into the later rounds and try and make something happen there. So he sort of had this sole focus on his mind that he's not going to get KO'd. So he never threw any shots really whatsoever at any moments in an exchange and just kept his hands glued to his head and absorbed damage while walking forward. But against Guido Cannetti, he couldn't do that. He tried to throw back with Guido. He ended up getting clipped on the chin. I do want to mention this. It was an early stoppage. I think the reason that they stopped it a bit early was because they've seen him take so much damage before, so they just want to jump in there straight away because of the amount of brain damage this man has had in only 2 fights in his UFC career. But he's just not ready for the UFC. Simple as. If Sean O'Malley can dribble an imaginary basketball between his legs while he's beating the fuck out of you, you don't really belong in the UFC, and it got proven here tonight against Guido Cannetti. Was it an early stoppage? Yes. Would he have got finished anyway? Probably yes as well. However, we've seen how tough he is, so I feel like it should have been allowed to go on a little bit longer. Although he was out on his feet a little bit, he might have snapped back, got the clinch. Guido might have gassed himself out. We saw that during McKinney versus Dober, which we'll get to in a second, up the card. But even still, Moutinho loses by 1st round KO. I picked Cannetti to win this one by TKO in the later rounds. He got it done a little bit earlier, so good for him. A good win. Now you have to keep this old fuck with a bad record for way longer. Moving on, up the card, Dalcha Lungiambula versus Cody Brundage. Again, Lungiambula doing really good early on, just like Nchukwi versus Murzakhanov. Doing really good early on. He got a takedown for himself, or he ended up on top from a takedown from Brundage and controlled there. He was beating the fuck out of Brundage on the ground quite well, landing some decent shots on the feet too. Then eventually he gets back up, shoots a bad takedown, puts himself in a guillotine, and therefore gets tapped to a guillotine. Now, Cody Brundage had a great guillotine, and it was a really tight squeeze, and it was a good guillotine, but I do believe that Dalcha Lungiambula, you can always escape a guillotine from full guard, in my opinion. At this point in MMA, you better be trying everything you possibly can to get out of that guillotine, fighting at the feet behind your back, trying to separate the guard there, trying to pass over, trying to just jerk yourself in weird directions. I mean, Dalcha tapped to a guillotine in round 1. I think he panicked. I think he hasn't really been put in that position too many times before, and that showed in this matchup. But yeah, Cody Brundage gets the job done by guillotine in the first round. It was a tight guillotine, and Dalcha does have a massive head, so that probably is a reason why he did tap. But I just didn't see any resistance. I just saw him get into a guillotine and think, oh, I'm going to tap in a couple of seconds. Tap. Interesting, though. Good win from Cody Brundage. He got 50k, and so did Azamat Murzakhanov as well. Moving on up the card to another matchup, Sabina Mazo versus Miranda Maverick. Miranda Maverick, I said she'd win this one by grappling, eventually getting maybe a decision or a submission in the later rounds. She ended up getting a submission in round 2 with a rear naked choke. Outstruck Mazo on the feet. Mazo had some success on the feet, actually, doing somewhat decent, but once they hit the ground, Maverick was dominant, landed the shots that she needed to, which opened up the rear naked choke in round 2, took the back, sunk in the choke. Miranda Maverick gets the job done by second round rear naked against Sabina Mazo. Not much to discuss there. It was just a grappling difference of Miranda Maverick showing itself massively in the fight. Mazo defended here and there, but Maverick was tenacious, got the takedowns that she needed to, and eventually got the choke at the end of round 2. Moving on up the card, Damon Jackson versus Kamuela Kirk. Kamuela Kirk was doing great in the first round. Damon Jackson actually still won the first round due to a takedown at the end, and also landing some of the bigger shots on the feet as well. But yeah, Kamuela Kirk landed more total strikes overall. Had some really good moments early in that first round, landed a bunch of knees to the body, a bunch of body shots in general, but Damon Jackson just didn't take that and stop. He kept coming, kept the pressure on. After the first round takedown at the end, when he ended up on top in an arm triangle position, he kind of, I guess, thought to himself, oh wait, I can really do some work to this guy on the ground if I take it to the ground early in round 2. And that's what he did in round 2. He said, you know what? I got him down easy at the end of round 1. I almost had a submission. If I get a full round on top of this guy, I'm probably going to get him out of there. So he immediately went for the takedown, got the takedown, bigger, stronger than Kirk, and put in the submission in round 2, which I believe was an arm triangle that Kamuela Kirk eventually tapped from. Very good win by Damon Jackson. Unfortunate hairline, but he wins anyway. I was really rooting for Kamuela Kirk. I like him as a prospect, but you know what? He loses this fight to Damon Jackson, who's 20-4 for a reason. Very good record. Should have seen it coming. I picked Kirk. Damon Jackson gets it done. Very good performance by him. Moving on up the card, Trevin Jones versus Javid Basharat. I picked Javid Basharat to win this one. I thought he'd win it by decision. I didn't think he'd win it on the feet for 3 rounds. I thought he'd grapple a little bit more, but he ended up just outstriking Trevin Jones, at least in the first 2 rounds, which I'm going to check immediately right now to see if it was the first 2 rounds. I believe it was. He clearly outstruck him in the first 2 rounds. Yes, he did. Round 3 was a bit closer. He still outstruck Trevin Jones in round 3, but they still gave him the decision win. 29-28, I believe it was. It was a close fight, though. Trevin Jones was having his moments. The first round was all Javid Basharat, but other than that, Trevin Jones was landing some really big, powerful shots that maybe put down other guys in the bantamweight division, but Javid Basharat, in my opinion, showed more than anything a great chin. He took big shots on the chin, showed great stand-up in general. The body shots he was landing in round 1 to hurt Trevin Jones, I believe, carried over for the rest of the fight, and he won this one 30-27, 29-28, whatever you want to call it. He got the job done. Very good performance. Was landing the most impactful shots in the fight for sure. And he was landing more of them with good footwork, good movement in general. Javid Basharat looked like a great contender. And Trevin Jones is no easy test to get through in your debut. So I rate Javid Basharat for that. He called out Guido Cannetti. Bitch call out, pussy. Kinda hate him for it. Go fuck yourself. Don't call out an old man with a shit record. But either way, if he gets it, it's a free paycheck for him. So we'll see if he gets it done. Javid Basharat wins, though. Very good performance. And great on the microphone afterwards by giving Trevin Jones his moment to speak. You know what I'm saying? Moving on. Up the card, JJ Aldridge versus Gillian Robertson. Just JJ Aldridge stuffing takedowns, ending up on top when she did, and landing total strikes to a victory and some significant strikes on the feet. She outlanded Gillian Robertson in most of the rounds. Outgrappled her in most of the rounds as well, and landed the better shots. That's all there is to it. Pretty boring. Moving on. Up the card, Matthew Semmelsberger versus AJ Fletcher. Decent scrap. It got very exciting in like short bursts, but it wasn't like an exciting fight overall. But it was enough to keep you excited by like, oh, what's going to happen out of nowhere this time, you know? So, first round goes to AJ Fletcher, I do believe. He had a very good first round against Matthew Semmelsberger. Looked very good on the feet. Had some moments where he would land a good leg kick early on and eventually got himself the takedown in round 1 where he just sort of kept top control and had good moments there. Round 2, Matthew Semmelsberger sort of came back, landed way more significant strikes. It was all basically decided by who hustled more at the end of the rounds. Semmelsberger was on bottom at the end of the round in round 2. No, he was on top, landing good. Fletcher reversed it, and then Semmelsberger hustled and reversed it back. Ended up on top in round 2 after Fletcher had been controlling him without too much damage. And then he started landing some big elbows, big ground and pound shots towards the end of round 2, securing himself round 2 in the eyes of the judges. I had it 1-1 going into the third. And then round 3, AJ Fletcher again was doing good, had good control, but Matthew Semmelsberger landed the more impactful shots, the more meaningful shots, and more importantly, finished the round on top in a good position, landing some shots. Fletcher got a reversal, ended up on top afterwards, didn't do too much damage there. Matthew Semmelsberger got back up. They both traded towards the end of the bell. Very close third round, but Semmelsberger landed more total strikes, more significant. And yeah, did more with the positions he was given than Fletcher did. Very good win by Matthew Semmelsberger. Very close, but I had it 29-28 him by unanimous decision. Good win. Moving on up the card to another fight on the main card. Alex Pereira versus Bruno Silva. I went with Alex Pereira by KO here. He got the job done by decision. He clearly beat Bruno Silva in this fight, although it was close. Very close. And there were moments where I'm thinking to myself, man, Bruno Silva might want to try out some fucking kickboxing world championships because he's doing good against Alex Pereira, but overall, despite the takedowns of Bruno Silva, Alex Pereira was way busier at range, way busier in the clinch, which was a big deal because he over doubled Bruno Silva on total strikes, 165-72. That was more often than not the little punches he was doing in the clinch, the little knees that he was doing in the clinch as Bruno Silva was trying to press him up against the cage and muscle him around. Alex Pereira showed improved takedown defense than his debut, worked his way back up a lot easier, gave up less bad positions, had good wrist control, got back to his base and worked his way back up from there. Very good takedown defense by Alex Pereira and good grappling avoidance to get back to his feet. But on the feet, man, it was risky. Bruno Silva was landing some decent shots, but Pereira landed all of the better shots and eventually got the job done. I have no idea how it was 30-27 on the scorecards. I don't know about that. 29-28 seemed more likely to me. I'll check the stats right now and see if they do agree with me here, but I believe Alex Pereira won the first round by outlanding Bruno Silva and also having a really good moment at the end of round 1 as well, where he landed a bunch of combination shots and sort of rocked Bruno Silva, which I believe gave him that first round guaranteed, even if it was close beforehand. And then round 2, I thought that Bruno Silva won round 2. In all honesty, I thought he did. He got the takedown, had more control, landed a couple of shots there, landed some shots against the cage, landed good shots on the feet in general. You could argue that round to Pereira, but I thought Bruno Silva finished strong and should have got that second round. Round 3, though, was Alex Pereira, very, very dominantly. It could have been a 10-8, but Bruno Silva fought back enough to make sure it wasn't a 10-8 round. It arguably could have still been a 10-8 because Alex Pereira was beating the shit out of him in round 3. Great cardio, great body shots. That left hook almost had Bruno Silva completely done at one point in the third round. He followed up, great knees to the body, great punches to the body in general, and just amazing work from Alex Pereira in the third round. Really came into his own. Did start to slow down a little bit, but still showed good calmness, good composure, and for a guy with little experience, he showed a veteran's mindset in that third round to turn it back around and secure himself that round. Very good performance by Alex Pereira. I do want to mention this, although I did say maybe it wasn't the best performance watching it live, Adesanya came into the UFC. He destroyed Rob Wilkinson after a couple of takedowns in the first round that Wilkinson got on him. Worked his way back up to his feet, eventually finishing, I believe, Rob Wilkinson in the second round by TKO. Alex Pereira did exactly the same thing to Andreas Michailidis. in my opinion. And they both had a tough test in their second fight coming in that took them to a close competitive decision. And I think Bruno Silva was Adesanya's Vittori, a guy who might make it to the top anyway one day, but still, he had an amazing performance here against Alex Pereira. And now Pereira, I think, is going to move way up the rankings. I think this is going to put him at number like 20 or 18, so he's going to be looking for a ranked opponent. I think Brad Tavares would be perfect. He called out Cannoneer. You're not going to get a Cannoneer fight, so let's do you versus Brad Tavares as the main card opener of Adesanya versus Cannoneer, and then you can maybe have some backstage altercations between Alex Pereira and Israel Adesanya, and they go past each other at the weigh-ins, and then maybe they're both sitting in the same line at the buffet to rehydrate themselves, and they have a little bit of an interaction. Like, that's what you kind of want between the pair of them. Alex Pereira, Israel Adesanya on the same card in July. Give him some time off because he did take some damage, and let's do him versus Tavares. No career for Tavares. He must only exist to fuel other people's careers, not his own. Moving on to another fight up the card. But I will say Alex Pereira, at times, pretty defensively irresponsible. He's not Adesanya. Adesanya's way more defense. Pereira's more an onslaughting offense. So, yeah, not the same footwork or movement and head movement than Adesanya. He did move out the way of a lot of shots and roll with a lot of shots, but there were times where Bruno Silva was clipping him with some really big shots, but he's got a good chin. Good for him. Moving on up the card, Drew Dober versus Terrence McKinney. I went with Terrence McKinney here, and I thought he'd get the job done. He didn't get the job done. He kind of did, but he didn't. He gassed out in the first round after going for a finish. Absolute wildness back and forth. It could have got a fight of the night bonus, but they went with 4 performance bonuses instead, which is worth it, I guess, because, you know, it was only a round and wasn't even a round. It was under a round. But either way, great win from Drew Dober. The chin of the West, the Chad of chins all around. The fire hydrant head Drew Dober just stays undefeated at not getting KO'd, it seems, because Terrence McKinney was landing really big shots on him, rocked him immediately with punches in the first opening 30 seconds of the round, rocked Drew Dober badly. Dober's all over the place, rocked all over the place, wobbling here, wobbling over there, taking some big shots of ground and pound from McKinney, working his way back up. He gets flying kneed in the face after that as well, catches a kick but gets kneed in the face from a flying knee and ends up going down again. Tries to fight his way back up, and Terrence McKinney's raining down shots even more behind the ear. Big shots from Terrence McKinney. He's hurting Drew Dober badly, and then Drew Dober eventually finds his way back into the fight against Terrence McKinney. Ends up on top, lands big shots on McKinney. McKinney gets back up to his feet, eats a knee to like the chest area, which really wins him massively because McKinney was immediately starting to gas out after not finishing Dober in the first few minutes, throwing wheel kicks and spinning back fists over and over again, just not looking very composed whatsoever. Eventually, Drew Dober got the knee to the body as McKinney's getting back up to his feet, ended up on top, landing big shots over and over again. And the difference was McKinney wasn't scrambling and moving. He was covering up, accepting defeat a little bit because he was gassing. And Dober was scrambling and moving, trying to get back into the fight. So, good win from Dober. I picked McKinney as a big underdog here. I think it was a decent pick because he did show that he can hang, but he just needs to be a bit more calm and patient and composed under big, hyped, intense situations, which is difficult to do, but for a guy like Drew Dober who's been in wars, he can do that. That's the difference between experience in a war-like fight. Dober showed that in this matchup. McKinney needs to be a little bit more patient, a little bit more composed, and work on that cardio a bit as well, because one round, Jesus. Moving on up the card, Khalil Rountree versus Carl Roberson. Right. Maybe the most brutal finish I've seen in a very long time. Khalil Rountree has a habit for doing that to people. Very close first round that they had. Very competitive first round, but my word, I gave it to Khalil Rountree in the first. He landed a couple more shots, I would say, and also landed the more meaningful shots. Roberson landed a couple of good kicks to the legs and stuff like that, but it was the handwork of Khalil Rountree catching Roberson on the chin a couple of times early that was doing him the justice in the first round, and he ended up winning the first round based on that. Round 2, he starts assassinating Carl Roberson. Big combinations, down goes Roberson, big combos again, Roberson back up, more shots, down goes Roberson again. Then a fucking brutal body kick, soccer kick to the ground Legal, by the way, because it's to the body. And he done it before in a Contender Series as well, which he mentioned afterwards. And it was just savage to see that. And then, even more savage, he went for like a stomp to the face on the ground, which could have been illegal. But he went to like stomp downwards at Roberson, while Roberson's up on one knee, like, please, no more. Up on one knee, begging for mercy, and there's a fucking stomp coming his way that barely misses. But a body kick did what he needed to do, sent Roberson to the canvas. Another big shot, down he goes, finish. Good win by Khalil Rountree. Very impressive performance. Did good on a microphone afterwards, crying about how fat he was, while there's people starving in other parts of the world. And then, he got the job done. Khalil Rountree, second round KO. One of the more brutal KOs I've seen in a very long time. And he got a 50k bonus for his book that he's writing about not stuffing your face like a slob. Moving on, up the card, Sodiq Yusuff versus Alex Caceres. I went with Sodiq Yusuff here. I said he would win by TKO, I believe. Very close fight. Closer than people are imagining this was as well. Oh, Caceres landed more significant strikes. I haven't actually checked the stats of this one back yet. I gave it to Sodiq Yusuff based on the second and third round. Caceres outlanded him significantly in the second round. First round is definitely Caceres, in my opinion, landing the better shots on the feet. He even had a moment where he almost had a rear naked choke in the first round as well. Had a good takedown moment, and got back up whenever Yusuff got him down. Eventually winning the first round. And in the second round, Sodiq Yusuff started to really plant his feet, land with a bit more power, chop at the inside leg of Alex Caceres, which really changed the outcome of the fight, in my opinion. That inside leg kick, chewing apart the leg of Caceres, starting to limp around a little bit more. His movement not so sporadic, easier to land punches on from Sodiq Yusuff. But still, Caceres kept it competitive every round. I gave it to Yusuff because of the damage he was doing with the leg kick, which is sad to give a person a fight for, but he was knocking Caceres off balance with the leg kick. He even knocked him backwards with a jab at one point as well. Landed with the better, more powerful shots, even though Caceres was landing great shots of his own. It was a very close fight. Second round, Yusuff. Third round, Caceres did more. Yusuff did more damage. Caceres was limping around. Yusuff was fine, perceivably, I guess. We don't really know, but he at least had a better poker face on whatever damage he was feeling. So it looked like he was the winner in round 3. In a very close round, he knocked Caceres off balance with an inside leg kick. Caught him with a couple of big punches as well. Even if Caceres landed a couple more strikes, Yusuff landed better. Won the third round. No argument there. 2 rounds to 1 Yusuff. Extremely close though, man. Caceres is game as they come. Wish he wasn't vegan, but so he had a bit more pop on his shots. But oh well. Yusuff gets the job done. Moves up. He wants a fight with Bryce Mitchell. Don't see that happening. I see him versus Shane Burgos happening. Moving on. Up the card. Marlon Moraes versus Song Yadong. Oh, poor Moraes, man. Poor Marlon Moraes, man. I picked Song Yadong to win this one by KO in the first round. He KO'd Moraes in the first round. Obviously, Moraes can't take a clean shot on the chin. It's not about good or bad. Like, people get caught, you know? You have to be able to get caught. Like, it's a thing that happens in combat sports. Like, you get hit with punches. If you look up and down this card at some of the stats, Nchukwi landed like 40% of 43 significant strikes on Azamat Murzakhanov's face. You know what I mean? You look at other points in the card. Semmelsberger, Fletcher, they both took big shots on the chin. Basharat, Jones, both landed about 50% of their shots on the chin, both with a great output as well. Like, you have to be able to take shots on the chin. Yadong is powerful and fast, I understand. But it's shots like that that would, like, stumble Yan back a bit and then get him recomposed and get him back in his mode. And shots like that that would stumble Vera back a little bit and then put him back in his stance and get him recomposed. It's shots like that that put Moraes out cold because he can't recover from shots. He even got rocked with a hook before that happened as well. With a left hook from Yadong, wobbled him a little bit and then just finished him off with like a nice straight right hand, left hook, uppercut combo. Really nice finish from Song Yadong. I think it's just about Moraes' chin. The only thing I could say other than maybe retiring him and making him just leave the sport because of the brain damage that he's taken is doing him versus Garbrandt. Maybe. Loser goes home forever. Winner stays on. We'll see what they do. But yeah, Moraes' chin just cannot keep up with the game right now. And Song Yadong looks amazing. Really does look amazing. Really good distance control. Didn't really get hit by any big shots from Moraes too badly. Did get hit a couple of times, but took them well. Rolled with them if he needed to. And then eventually got the KO in the first round about 2 minutes in. Not much to talk about there. Called out Dominic Cruz. Aldo versus Cruz is happening. Silly call out. We'll see what he gets. Maybe a Merab Dvalishvili. Maybe a Ricky Simone. Maybe an O'Malley. Maybe a Sandhagen. Who knows? Moving on. Up the card. Thiago Santos versus Magomed Ankalaev. I don't even want to talk about this. I've talked about it for about 14 minutes on my other video on the channel. So if you want my opinion on it, go to that. Ankalaev stayed at range. Well, not really. Stayed in the pocket doing nothing, but barely outlanding Santos for 5 rounds. Got dropped in the second by Santos badly. Recovered. Got his takedown in the 4th round. Ended up on top. Won the 5th round by just pushing Santos up against the cage and doing that. And then, other than that, just outstruck him at range. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Click that button up there. Toodle pip. I'll see you later. Goodbye.